Welcome to our next conversation with the candidates here on AM Quincy. And next up, we welcome to the program Quincy City Councilor at Large, Nina Liang, who is on the ticket but running unopposed for the next 2 years. Nina, great to see you again.
Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. It seems like you and I have chatted for so many times over the past, 7, 8 years now?
8 years. Yeah. We're coming up to 8 years at the close of this term.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So how did it all happen? How did we get to be city council?
Yeah, how did you get stuck with me for 8 years? When I first ran, actually, I didn't think I was going to be here 8 years later for sure, right? When I first ran in 2015 and then got elected and got sworn in 2016, I had been at the time working for my family's restaurant group for 5 years. And in that time, really got to dive into the work on the philanthropic arm, right? And so get engaged with local organizations and give back to the communities. And that's where I loved the work. But I also saw that, the impact of donating time and money doesn't always fix the problems. And so that got to be really frustrating, right? Seeing that time and again, the issues were still coming up, and no matter how much people tried, they just weren't getting fixed. And so venting about that, somebody came up to me and said, well, then you should run for city council. And I said, I don't understand the words you just said at me, right? I was not politically involved at all. Very civically involved, but not politically involved. And so I didn't know what running meant. I didn't know what a city councilor was. And save for people who were in the industry who believed in me and thought that I could do this work, right? If it weren't for them, I wouldn't be here 8 years later. But luckily, they took a chance on me, and here I am.
And here you are. Mm-hmm. And has it been what you thought it would be?
No.
Okay.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I love the work, and that's where my passion is, right? That's what drove me to run in the first place, was working in the community, giving back to the community up until that point when I had run for office. And that's the part of the job that I love. Nobody tells you, though, when you get into office, how to do the job, right? And so understanding, okay, now you're here, you want to execute X, Y, and Z, right? Produce X, Y, and Z. Nobody tells you how to do that, right? With making motions, or, you need a second to motion on something, and then how do you pass it? But wait, it needs a committee meeting. I mean, nobody talks you through any of that. And so that part of it I definitely wasn't expecting. I didn't know what I didn't know. So that was a little bit challenging at first, for sure.
But here we are now, approaching your, what would be 5th term, right, in office?
Yeah. So, yeah.
Do you want to talk about some accomplishments over the past years that you feel, meet the Nina Liang objective?
Yeah, no, thank you for asking and giving me the opportunity to talk about it. So, I think my first term, again, I came into it really committed and focused on wanting to fix this one issue, which I think set me over the top, right, when I decided to run for office. Downtown was changing, and we as small business owners, I felt, weren't getting engaged in the conversation. Things were happening all around us, to us, and we had no say in it. We had been there well before anything was going great, in the downtown, and we were really invested because we loved this community, but we weren't part of the conversation, and that felt really challenging to know, hey, we're here, but nobody cares about what you think or what you
business
need.
Owners?
Yeah,
okay.
And then subsequently hearing that residents felt the same way, and so it's this big, essentially feeling that, we're not part of the conversation for changes that are going to be impacting all of us, right? So what I was able to do is change the process for how we approve projects on public land in the downtown. And so we created this additional layer of engagement where they had to come in front of the city council to approve those projects, which means more public hearings, more opportunities for engagement. And being able to get that done my first term it felt incredible, right? I came in wanting to make a difference with engagement and levels of engagement. And so being able to do that through legislation, which is how we operate on the council, it was a really cool thing to see those two things come together. The second term, it was really about hearing more about what residents needed at this point, right? We came in with, already understanding an issue and then finding a way to address it. But that happens with every issue across the city, right? So let's hear from residents. Let's see what other issues are out there. And in my second term, I was hearing from folks who were already working really hard before my time to create something in the city that really, I think, validated them as members of the LGBTQ community, feeling like they had a voice and a place here. And it was about figuring out a way to do that over years, again, from activists and folks who were really engaging well before my time. and then being able to take that and say, how can I be helpful in that? You know, what can I do to help move the needle on that? And so, along with residents and activists in the city and with the administration too, sitting down with the mayor and thinking about how can we make something happen to address this issue, right? We created the LGBTQ Commission, and that felt amazing, right? To be able to see all of these folks come together in a collaborative way to produce something that was wanted for so long, but we weren't able to achieve, right? To be able to do that, working with everyone, felt really good, and that really taught me the importance of you know, sitting down with people who may or may not agree with your perspective or your opinion, but ultimately say, okay, but we're here to serve, right? And we need to deliver on something for residents who are asking for it. So that's our job and that's our goal, and that's what ended up happening. My third term was tough. It was the pandemic term. I was the pandemic president on the council, which I still sort of like, you know, that's like kind of like my battle scars, like, you know, being able to say, I was a pandemic president, we got through it. You know, that was tough. I'm super grateful to my colleagues for trusting me to be council president that term and to step up to represent the body during that term, in my third term at that, right? I was so excited in January when we started. I had all these ideas in mind, again, about how to be effective now and the importance of collaborative efforts, and let's move that forward, right? Let's ride that momentum, let's keep going, and was so excited about it. And then 3 months later, as everyone knows, the world shut down,
right.
You know, and no one knew what we were doing day to day, right? On such a variety of issues. And for us, it was just about, okay, not all these new amazing things we all wanted to get done. We just need to keep things moving. We need to keep the train running. We need government to keep functioning, you know? And I think I was really lucky, you know, having had used Zoom for my day job to be able to then bring that skill to the city council and frankly to City Hall, and being able to work with folks in the city council office, right? Jen Manning is amazing and, you know, was able to take everything that I knew about Zoom, and then she was able to basically capture that, share it with the masses, and ensure that the public were still engaged with us. And, you know, other departments as well were allowing me to come in and work with them and show them how to set up Zoom. And so I'm so grateful that people trusted me with that process. I look back and I think for so many reasons, again, it was just such a challenging, awful time in all of our lives, right? But to be able to be trusted with that responsibility of keeping us accessible and keeping that part of government running is something that I'll always be grateful for, you know, to be able to do.
Sure.
So, yeah.
And finally, your past term?
Yeah, I know. This is so interesting, right? Because, you know, coming out of the pandemic years, or, I mean, we're still in it, but, you know, coming out of those 2 terms as council president during the pandemic, I think I wanted to very desperately hit like a reset and go back to what I was saying, right? That momentum that we had built about, you know, being effective, producing results for things that residents are bringing to your attention, you know? And in this term, I looked back and was really reflective about, you know, what have I been trying to do that momentum sort of stopped, right? How can I pick that back up to be more effective now in this term that I have after all of that experience? And, you know, I talked a lot with you about a residential tax exemption, the affordability or lack thereof of staying in this city or even moving to this city. I don't care if you've been here, you know, 5 generations or 5 days. It is very difficult to exist right now in this world, but for me and for the responsibility I have in this city, right? And so we've talked a lot about creating a residential tax exemption, and I've worked really closely with the assessor's office, with residents, with people who know how this works to say, yes, we all want to give tax relief to residents. We're all residents, so we want to give tax relief to residents who are here. It's logistically impossible right now, given the offset that we have with commercial. We just don't have that commercial base to say, here's this, you know, incredible amount of commercial real estate you have, right? And we could tax that, and that will help to offset the residential tax, but we just don't have it, right? And so it was like, okay, how do we get creative around that then? You know, because I can't just build a bunch of commercial stuff tomorrow, right? What else can we do? Another thing I wanted to try to address was, you know, all the congestion across the city, right? And wanting to create some mobility plans about how we're creating bike lanes, like safer walking paths, like building out our sidewalks for safety, ADA compliance, all of these things. So the mobility plan was something else I was excited about. Then the pandemic happened, right? So these were 2 things that I think could have resulted in some long-term benefits for all of us, but neither one of them are possible to get done today or even tomorrow, right? And they're just, it's pieces of the problem, right, that I'm addressing. And so really thinking long and hard about it, I came up with the idea of doing a citywide rezoning, which I'm so excited about. So it was introduced and passed this term, and it's really going to define my work moving forward in my next term. So the first time we did a citywide rezoning, or the last time I should say, we did a citywide rezoning was over 50 years ago. And since then, there have been like spot changes here and there, right? So you'll go to one area of the city and say, well, we'll change the zoning for this area, or for this area, or for this area. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no, I think, mistakes or people doing bad things with that. I mean, there's no negativity there. I just think if we're gonna do 200 little changes here and there, and it's been over 50 years since we did an entire citywide one, why not take a step back and do a citywide rezoning, right? And so I'm really excited to move forward with this process. The ward councilors know their neighborhoods the best, right? They know their wards the best. And some of them had sponsored the request I put in to do this work. And so I'm really excited to work with them and dive in to see what they want to see for their communities as well. And it's going to be a process, but I think at the end of it, it's going to dictate some of these impacts that I think we want to see some solutions for, right? It's going to dictate how is it that we're going to build more commercial to offset that residential tax base. It's going to dictate, where are we building for congestion, where we're going to see better walkability, right, and less cars on the road. You know what I mean? It's going to have that ripple effect I want to address these other issues that I've been trying to find solutions for all these years. So I'm really excited to see this through. And I from what I've heard so far, folks are pretty excited and supportive of it.
What's the actual process for a citywide rezoning review? How does it logistically work, and how long do you think it'll take?
Thanks for asking. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. What I've learned in this process is that there's a lot of folks a lot smarter than me, a lot more effective than me, who've served as counselors in the past. So I'm taking a page out of their playbook, right? The counselors who did this 50 some odd years ago, they spent a year working with a consultant, an outside consultant, who went across the entire city and did an evaluation of where things currently are. They held numerous community meetings across the entire city, led by ward counselors. They had meetings within city departments as well, engaging planning and zoning, right? Of course, the administration being involved in it as well. I mean, it was a team effort if there ever was one. And I want to replicate that process. Okay. I think it worked well. I think from what I read and all the information that, again, Jen Manning, I have to give her credit for everything, right? She put together just packets and packets of information on how this was all done in the past, and that produced the current zoning we have, right? 50 some odd years later. So they clearly did something right. And again, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I want to start moving down that same process and then make adjustments where we need to, right? There's definitely going to be more community involvement now, given the channels of access we have. And so I'm excited to have that piece get elevated a lot more this time around. But I think it's going to be really exciting, and it's going to be a team effort, like I said, if there ever was one.
What would you say, Nina, is the proudest moments that you've had while serving on the city council? Proudest vote maybe that you've taken, or proudest achievement?
Oh, that's such a big question. I wish I had just one, but there have been a few over the years, if you'll indulge me.
Please. Yeah.
I remember my first re-election, so after my first term, and I was going around running for re-election the first time, I was door knocking with a friend who's white and only speaks English, and we knocked on her neighbor's door. The neighbor was Vietnamese and didn't speak English that well. We ended up talking for a very long time. I'm Chinese, right? And so we don't speak the same language whatsoever. We don't come from the same country, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But we talked for quite a while, and I thought her English was fine, And my friend, who only speaks English, looked at her neighbor and said, I would love to get together sometime. I always see you outside, and I'm outside, et cetera, et cetera. Why, is there anything I can do to make you feel more comfortable? Why have we not connected? And the neighbor looked at my friend and just said, my English isn't so good, My friend looked at her and just said, but you just spoke English to us for half an hour. Why is that? And the woman looked at me and just said, well, she makes me more comfortable, And I was just like, I don't speak Vietnamese, right? But the fact that she felt comfortable engaging with us, with a neighbor who she never engaged with, thinking this person's going to judge me because my English is bad, And now she spoke to her for 30 minutes because we're all just hanging out talking together. That's awesome, right, to see that, because no matter what happened with my election that year, and I'm gonna get emotional, like, no matter what happened with my election that year, like, you now have two neighbors who wouldn't have otherwise ever spoken to each other, and now, you know, they're engaging with each other and, you know, hopefully helping each other, right? And, you know, my friend had mentioned a couple of times that, you know, she always brings things over, like little snacks and food and vice versa. And I mean, like, that's what you want to have happen, right? And so, like, to see that kind of impact where somebody might look and not know what language I speak or my background, but simply just because of the way I look, they're just like, I feel comfortable talking to you, and that opens up my life to other people in this city. That's incredible, you know? And I just, that to me was an incredible moment. I think another time that was really impactful was, frankly, creating the LGBTQ Commission. You know, that was really hard, right? Because it had been an effort that had been, not specifically the commission, but wanting to create something for the community. That effort had been going on well before my time. People in the community have been working hard at that well before I ever ran for office. And to be able to bring, you know, all of these people together who may or may not agree, right, on why the commission needs to exist or what the commission does, but to have everyone, like the administration, to have residents, to have my colleagues on the council all come together and just say, my personal values don't matter here. What matters is what residents want. And we're all going to come together and produce and deliver on this, you know? And now here we are years later having had a commission. Like, that is what this work should be about, right? Yes, I think our personal values are important so people know who we are and what we stand for. But when you're talking about the work itself, it cannot be about you, right? No one's going to remember me in 10 years, but hopefully they'll remember the work that we produce, right? And that commission, the establishment of that commission, I think was like just the perfect example of that, where everyone put aside their egos, put aside their personal agendas, and just said, this is something the residents want, let's do it, you know? And then lastly, I'll just say too, the vaccine clinic we put together, I stopped talking about that, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to start talking about it again, because that was a show of collaborative efforts, if there were any. We, you know, wanted to vaccinate the seniors in the city of Quincy, and this was way back when people weren't sure about vaccines, and they were limited, and people were lining up everywhere to get, I mean, it was like a fight to get these, and Stop and Shop came in and said, yeah, we'll, you know, provide some vaccines to seniors in Quincy. And it was kind of like a go figure it out, right? And I just got lucky enough to be asked to be involved. And so, you know, a friend and I, we from the Quincy Housing Authority, we sat down and we were just like, okay, how do we do this, right? Residents don't speak English, or they do, but they don't really necessarily have access to, you know, getting resources. They don't understand the vaccine, but we need to keep them safe. What do we do? And it was in a very, very limited time frame. So we got, you know, other city councilors, we got the administration, we got state legislators, we got Congressman Lynch, and we got, you know, Sheriff McDermott, and we got county people, state people, federal people, we got everyone in the community involved to run this vaccine clinic essentially in Quincy. And all these nonprofits came in, like ACDC, BCNC, they translated materials, they came on site, they translated for residents on site, working with the Quincy Fire Department. I mean, we vaccinated over 1,000 seniors, right? And again, it wasn't about us. It wasn't about, you know, well, I'm upset with you because of this thing that didn't pass or this thing that passed, or, you know, we all parked our personal stuff and we all just got together and ran this vaccine clinic, right? It was incredible. And I think that's what government should be about ultimately, you know? And so that's what I'm always trying to keep in the back of my mind. And that's what drives me. And so I'm excited to keep working in that way moving forward.
What would you say was the most difficult vote you had to take on the council? The one that made you really take pause and really consider deeply how you wanted to vote?
That's a good one too. There are quite a few. I'd have to say mostly all of them. I have, no, I'm serious. Okay. For those who know me understand that answer, because like I have such an internal struggle with everything I do, because again, it's not about me and my name, right? People won't remember me. It's about the impact of my vote. And so every vote I make, that's it, right? Like once I vote on something in that way, that's what stays. And so I take it very seriously with every vote, and have this internal struggle of like thinking of like every scenario possible. But if I had to give one answer, the one that definitely I think comes to mind first, which after I leave here, there's going to be like 30 others I can tell you about, but was the pension obligation bond.
Yes.
Looking back at it now and seeing the results of it, and frankly, so far it's been going great, right?
Given the way interest rates have gone, yes.
Oh my gosh, interest rates have gone,
right.
We'll do another whole session on interest rates,
Yeah.
but looking back at that and the financial savings to the city, I voted against those savings. I voted against these savings that we've had since it's passed, right?
Yes.
I voted against this tremendously innovative thing that we were going to do as a city to save the taxpayers millions and millions of dollars,
Yeah.
right? At the time, though, I didn't vote for it because I'm so risk averse, and that's ultimately what I leaned back on, right? I didn't disagree with these potential savings that we are now seeing the results of.
Right.
I didn't agree at the time with it's going to be these incredible benefits, which we're now seeing, right? At the time, for me, it was, this is a major risk, right? And as much as I'm willing to take some risk and fail, and fail, right, and try again, when it comes to taking risks with other people's money, that's where I really clam up.
Well, to put it in perspective, it was $475 million.
Thank you for saying that number out loud. Yes, I was gambling with $475 million, right? It's something you have to be really brave with, I think, and I think the mayor was exceptionally brave in doing that, as were my colleagues who supported. I also think, though, that I still stand behind my decision because, again, the way that I move on these things is that I'm also taking a big risk with taxpayer dollars. It's not my $475 million, right? Not my own.
Right.
It's other people's. And I, at the time, did not think that the risk was worth it. The numbers that we were seeing and the projections that we were seeing, I personally, right, did not see the support that I needed within the documentation to feel comfortable and confident. Like, okay, here's the evidence. It's strong, concrete evidence. I can bet on that, right? I didn't feel quite confident in the evidence that was produced to us. So, it was a very tough decision. It was a decision that, again, I stand behind. And I also see that had it gone the way that I did, we wouldn't have the savings we did today, right? So it's one of those things where it's like you have to just be comfortable sometimes knowing that your vote or your vote against something actually produced something wonderful. And I could have supported it, right? But again, I always, with every vote I take, whether it's $475 million or accepting a $400 donation from somebody, right, which we do on the council, it's every decision I make, I need to think about. It's not about my name, it's not about me, right? How is this going to have a lasting impact outside of me when we're done here, and can I live with that? So that's where I ended up on it.
Okay, yeah. Do you look at the city, Nina, differently today than you did before you were elected to office?
I do and I don't.
Yeah.
I do because now, that saying, like, now you know how the sausage is made?
Yeah.
Now I know how the sausage is made, right? And like, wow. But it's just, I don't, because when I had first run for office, like I had said earlier, when I knew I wasn't going to win and I felt comfortable doing that, it was because I had this incredible opportunity to be involved with nonprofits across the city. And that's where the work happens. Even now, right? Being on this side of it where I can produce legislation or vote for things or make those changes, the majority of those ideas and these innovative, things that come to light, they come from community members still, and I think if not for these residents, if not for these nonprofit organizations and neighborhood associations, et cetera, I don't think we'd be nearly as innovative as we are today in these past 8 years that we've been, right? And that's where the magic happens, right? And that was all happening before my time on the council, where I got to see that. I got to see what keeps this city running, and it's those people, it's those groups. And when I was talking earlier about the LGBTQ Commission, right? Again, that came from residents, right, and activists in the neighborhood. When I was talking about, my first term, changing the way we approve projects in the downtown, right? Engaging with, different members of different unions who are from Quincy who know the construction industry well. When I was talking about the vaccine clinic, right? Those nonprofits who came in to, provide interpretation services. Like, everything we do comes from people who are giving and working for the city outside of City Hall as well, and so that hasn't changed for sure. They're still really active, and I still rely very heavily on them. So.
Sure. Anything else you'd like to share with folks right now as you approach another 2 years in office?
Just a heartfelt thank you. It's been a lot, and it's been definitely tumultuous at times. It's been exceptionally challenging, but it's also been just so humbling and so rewarding, right? I love this city so much, and I always laugh because I'm like, growing up here, all I wanted to do was get out, and now here I am, like, serving the city every way I possibly can. But I can do that because people are taking a risk on me year over year, right? I've had supporters who've reached out and said, Nina, I'm really disappointed with that decision, or I'm really disappointed in this vote that you took on X, Y, and Z. But they're still there supporting because we can have conversations and say, well, this is my reasoning behind it, right? Can we talk through that and educate me on some of these things? Let's talk through it, right? And that's what this work is about. It's not about making things personal. It's about sometimes being disappointing, right? It's about learning from your mistakes. It's about being better every step of the way. And I just think the next 2 years, hopefully, will be an opportunity to show that to voters, to residents, to business owners, to my colleagues, to everyone, right? That these last 8 years have just been such an incredible educational opportunity, right? I came in wanting to serve my city, to make it better, to give back, and every bump and every success along the way has hopefully taught me how to do that better. So hopefully that's what the next 2 years will show, and I'll just continue to work and produce even better for people who are taking a chance on me.
Now the big question, Nina.
Yeah.
Would you ever consider running for mayor?
Oh gosh, people always say never say never, but I love my job so much, right? I think that being mayor, particularly in Quincy, where it's the type A form of government, meaning that whoever the mayor is, he or she is the CEO of the city. That is an all-consuming 24/7. You are the CEO. You are the head of a major city. That comes with so much that I can't even assume to know or understand, right? But what I know right now is I love what I'm doing. I love being able to serve residents the way that I do. And like I was just saying, I've learned so much and fought through so much to get to this point where I can be the most impactful and the most effective. And I want to see that through. That's what's really important to me right now. So never say never. And this work right now that's in front of me is really important, that I deliver on it and that I do it well.
Really appreciate you coming by and talking with us. It's been great.
Thanks for letting me chat with you. This is always so much fun.
Good, I'm glad.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
We'll see you around City Hall.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And thank you for watching us here at AM Quincy. I'm Joe Catalano. We'll see you next time.